Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. I just started filming my video and I got like halfway through and then my camera like completely crashed. So now I have to start all over again, but that's fine. But I'm really excited to be making this video because this topic is very near and dear to my heart just because of how everything went. I'm so happy to share my birth story with everybody. So with that being said, this is my son. He is sleeping, obviously. I just nursed him. I don't know if you guys can see him. I'm trying not to wake him up. This is Dawson. He's not gonna wake up. Okay. He's like, Mom, please don't wake me up right now. He will be 2 weeks old. Let's see, today's Friday. He'll be 2 weeks old on Monday. Time has just been flying by, and it has been amazing so far. Like, I am just so grateful for how everything has been going. And I couldn't ask for anything else at this point. Everything is just amazing. Everything started, let's see, so I was 40 weeks pregnant on the 24th and I was dilated to, I think, not even a 1, and I was not even effaced at all. I was getting very frustrated and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try the midwife's brew again. I had already tried it like prior to this with him. I was like, it's gotta work this time. All day that Sunday, I had been feeling like labor was near and I was feeling different this time around I was feeling different this day than I had been prior to this day, if that makes sense. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna give it a little boost. I'm gonna try the midwife's brew because I did it with my second daughter and it sent me straight into labor. And I do want to put a little disclaimer out that I did talk to several different midwives about the midwife's brew, and then I did my own research on it. There's definitely a lot of caution surrounding it just because it does contain castor oil, and if you do take too much of it, it can possibly make them pass meconium in the womb, and then they can aspirate it and then that could cause issues. But the chances of that happening are very low, but it does happen. I don't want to discredit, that. It definitely does still happen. You should definitely be very, very careful if you're going to take it. Definitely talk to your midwife or your doctor before you take it and get their outlook on everything. But like I said, I had talked to several different midwives about it and I was very careful about everything. And because it worked for my second daughter, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna try it and we'll see if it works this time again. I did write down kind of some points that I don't want to forget. So if you see me looking down, I'm looking at all of my notes that I wrote for my birth story. And then on my social medias, I did ask if anyone had any questions that they wanted me to answer in my story. And I did have a few questions, so I'll go ahead and answer those as well. So like I said, I did drink the midwife's brew. I started it at 9 and then you have to finish it in 30 minutes. And so I was probably finished around like 9:30 or so. And the recipe that I use does call for 2, but I was told to do about 3 to 4 to really make anything happen. I did that, like I said, with my first daughter as well, and I did that with him. I took 3 tablespoons. I mixed everything up and made the whole concoction. And then I waited, and thankfully my husband was home this night. So we were just both of us, we were just waiting for something to happen. And I started to as the hours rolled by, I was starting to get a little bit discouraged just because the other times that I've taken it, I kind of felt something, a lot sooner than I did when I went into labor with him. Like, contractions started a little bit sooner. And so I was like, you know what, it's probably not gonna work. Oh well, like, it is what it is. So we were just laying in bed, kind of watching movies, just chilling out. He had fallen asleep. I was kind of starting to doze off, and then my youngest daughter woke up. And so I said that contractions started around about 1:45. They had started prior to me going into her room to rock her back to sleep. and they were just very mild. Like, they were definitely manageable, but I could tell they were contractions, and they were pretty decently close together, but I didn't want to time them because my water hadn't broken yet. And I did have I went into the hospital because I was having prodromal labor, and I was telling myself, I was like, I felt so silly. I was like, I'm not going back in to see them unless my water actually breaks, unless I'm actually in labor. So like, even if I'm having contractions, like, I'm not going back in. So I go in and I rock my daughter to sleep, and I'm having contractions during that, but again, they're manageable. And then I come back to our bedroom and I get back in the bed, and then I notice they're kind of picking up a little bit more, and I'm like, okay, this could really be it. And I'm starting to be a little bit more optimistic about it. I'm like, okay, you know, like, we'll just see, don't get your hopes up, but you know, don't completely give up. So whenever I got back in the bed, I was like, okay, they're getting stronger, so I decided to time them. So I'm sitting here timing them, and they are, at this point, they're about 1 to 5 minutes apart, and they're lasting about they're lasting about like 50 seconds to like 1.5 minutes. And so I'm like, okay, like, I'm getting a little bit more excited. And so I go to the bathroom, and then I come back, and it's funny because my water like started to trickle right here with my youngest daughter, and then with him. Like, I was literally standing right here, and it started to trickle with both kids. And I was like, that is so funny. Completely did not even mean for that to happen, but it happened. I'm standing right here because I'm having a contraction, and I'm just kind of leaning over the bed just because like it's helping the pain kind of. And then I noticed it wasn't a gush that I felt, but it was like trickling down my leg, and I was like, that was definitely not pee, because I just went and I don't have to go anymore. And so I just immediately, I knew, I was like, well, that was my water. And so I'm over here trying to wake up my husband, and again, he had just fallen asleep. And so he was still like very out of it because he had been up all day, and it was like, what, 1 something at this point. And no, I'm sorry, it was 2:22 exactly when my water broke. And so I'm like trying to wake him up, and he's like taking forever to get up, and I'm like, baby, like, come on, like, my water just broke. So at this point I call my mom because I need her and my dad to come get my girls. And so I call my mom, and she ignores my call, and I call her again, and she ignores my call again. And I think I do that the 3rd time, and I'm getting so frustrated. So she answers, and like, you could tell like she was completely out of it. Like, she was not comprehending what was going on. And I'm getting really frustrated with her at this point. And I'm like, Mom, and I just hang up on her. And then I call my dad, and my dad answers, and he's like also out of it. He's like, I just took a half of a sleeping pill, or he said something like that. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, out of all of the days, you and Mom both know, like, I'm 40 weeks pregnant at this point. Like, come on now. Like, I was so frustrated. Shout out to you, Mom and Dad. I love you guys, but y'all were making me mad. I'm over here, you know, just talking to my parents, letting them know, like, this is the real thing. Like, my water just broke. And so they finally just come to, and my mom's like, okay, well, do you want us to come to your house and get the girls, or meet you at the birthing center? And I'm like, just meet us at the birthing center. Davon and I are just running around, just trying to get like last minute things. Like, we both have our hospital bags packed almost completely. The girls' little overnight bag to stay at my parents' house is completely packed. And all we're really doing is getting like shoes and like just like little stuff. It's mainly my husband that was getting stuff together. I'm the one who's running around like I'm like cleaning stuff up a little bit, and like trying to get everything in the car, and trying to get the girls ready and all that. And as I'm doing that, I had, in the midst of all that, I had put on like the little diapers for, what is it called? It's bladder incompetence. I had gotten those, and so I put 2 of them on because I knew that my water was probably gonna completely break, like, not very long from that point. I can still feel more water coming out, and it's coming a little bit more and coming a little bit more. Kind of starting to panic a little bit, just because I'm like, you know what, like, I hear that like the more kids you have, the faster they come. And so I'm like, okay, we gotta go, we gotta speed things up. And so I get in the car, we get everything in the car. Sorry, he just spit up a little bit. He's good now. But anyway, so Davon had to go outside to let the dogs out, so he was taking a little bit doing that. And so I'm in the car, and I call his mom to let him know that we are on our way to the hospital, that my water broke. And she's excited. She's like, okay, just keep me updated. We get like 5 minutes down the road, and my water just completely breaks, like, everywhere. But thankfully it's going into the little diapers that I'm wearing. It's like I can feel it just filling up completely. And I was like, this is gonna leak out everywhere. It's gonna be all over the car. And I was so frustrated because I didn't grab towels in the midst of everything. And so I'm like so mad at myself because I'm like, out of everything, I forgot towels. Like, really. We finally get to the birthing center and my parents are there, and I'm getting all emotional and I'm starting to cry because I'm in a lot of pain. And at this point, after my water broke, my contractions were about maybe 5 minutes apart, if even that. And they weren't really intensifying too much. I was like bracing myself because I know that after your water breaks, they get closer together and they intensify, but that wasn't really happening. I give my mom a hug and I'm crying and I'm kissing my girls goodbye and I'm just emotional. And so I walk in on the emergency side, and I had to leave Davon behind because he's getting the car seats out and, you know, switching everything over to my parents' car. So and because I had him during the whole COVID outbreak, I had to talk to a woman. She was like right like in front of the door, or like she was like right as you walked in the door, she was like right there. And she had like her little stand, and she was like asking me a million stupid questions like, have you been outside of the country and have you come in contact with anyone with COVID? The craziest questions. I'm like, no, like I'm fine. She's like, do you have any chest pains or headaches or blah, 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 like all these symptoms of COVID? I'm like, no, I'm healthy, let's go. Like, my water is breaking, I'm in labor, come on. Finally get into triage, and the two ladies that were in working in triage, they just looked at me and were like, oh, you're in labor. Like, clearly. But I had obviously like my pants, my shorts were completely soaked and there was just water everywhere. And so she put me in one of the beds, and I at this point my contractions are still, they're definitely getting stronger. She's monitoring me, she's having to put in my IV. She like started to do my IV, and she just is having a hard time, bless her heart. She just could not, I guess, apparently my vein, I don't know if it collapsed or what, but I've never had any issues with IVs in my veins. Like everyone always tells me I have really good veins, and I've never had issues with it. So I'm getting even more frustrated, and she's telling me that they're gonna have to do the COVID test on me, and I'm having these contractions and they're getting a lot stronger very quickly. So I get in there, they check me, and I am at a 3. I think maybe I'm 70% effaced at this point. I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong. I can't remember that part. And so I'm having these contractions, and mind you, I went into this birth not wanting any medication of any sorts whatsoever. I did the low intervention room, which is just like it's basically like a home birth. Like, I have a big old like queen size bed, like it's not like one of those hospital beds. I have a bathtub in there, like it's very homey in there and very spacious, and it's lovely. I was very in control of my labor the whole time, and I love that, and they were very, very respectful of everything that I wanted. So I'm in the triage, and my husband finally comes in, and they gave us masks and stuff, but I'm like, I'm not wearing this. Like, y'all cannot make me wear this. And so I didn't wear it. And so I'm having these contractions, and they're getting very strong, and I am breathing through them. Like, I'm using certain breathing techniques that I learned because I did want to do a hypnobirth. I, had listened to certain hypnobirthing tracks from like very early on in my pregnancy, pretty much all the way up until I gave birth to him. So I'm using all of the techniques that I've learned, and I am just not focusing on the pain at all. You're just in the zone. I'm not trying to, worry too much about anything else. I'm just focusing on my breathing and, making sure that he's okay and I'm okay and things like that. And the nurses were like very, very impressed. They're like, your contractions, and like on the contraction monitor, you can see like my contractions are like all the way, like the hills are like all the way at the top, and like it's like crazy. And they're like, you're doing like you are badass for doing this. Like, props to you because you're having big, big contractions. I'm like, yeah, I know, thanks. I don't want to talk about it. I just want to get in my room. I'm still having to wait, and this girl is just, God, she's taking forever to do my IV. And so she had to get like the head lady to come in and do my IV, and she finally gets it. And then they're having trouble with like flushing out my vein or something like that. And I'm like, do we really have to do this? Like, do I really need the IV? Because at this point, I don't want to do this. And she's like, you have to do it. And then they finally got it. And then they do my COVID test. And she shoves the thing up my nose, like freaking way up to here. And I'm like, my eye is watering. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, it was horrible. And we finally get to, our room. We got to the hospital around 3. So at this point, I think it's maybe 3:45, 4-ish maybe, because I think I was in triage for like maybe an hour. So I get into my room and I get on the bed finally, and I'm literally just sitting on the bed. I'm thinking of all of these different positions that I learned to help me, you know, birth and to make it easier for me. And my husband's like, you know what? I tell him to start the bathtub and to start the water in the bath. And so he does that. And he's like, you know what, why don't we eventually, because I'm sitting on the bed having all these contractions and I just don't want to move at all. And so I know that like the bathtub's right there. Like I know all of these things that I'm supposed to be doing, trying my damnedest to not worry about it. And to just focus on my breathing and to just relax, because obviously whenever you're not relaxed, your body is tensed up and your body just kind of like forgets what to do whenever you're in labor. That's why it's so important to stay very relaxed and very calm and practice and do your breathing techniques and just stay focused. So I'm, you know, just sitting on the bed and I'm having all these contractions and I'm like, I don't want to move. I don't want to get up. Don't touch me. Don't do anything. Like, I just want to have these contractions right here. Man, they were getting worse and worse. And so they definitely, I didn't want them to check me a lot, but they ended up checking me several times anyway, just because I had requested that, because I wanted to know personally what I was at. And so they kept checking me and I just was not dilating, and I was stuck like at a 3 and it was taking me forever to dilate, and I was getting very discouraged. And so my nurse was like, well, why don't we try different positions and why don't we try new things? How about you hop in the bathtub? My husband's like, yes, get in the bathtub. And I'm like, oh my gosh, fine. And so I'm struggling to get over to the bathtub, from the bed to the bathtub. And so I finally get in there and my contractions, you know, they're still probably about 5 minutes at this point. It was crazy because like during that whole time we were in the low intervention room, like the whole time we were in the room that I actually gave birth in, the time that I gave birth, my contractions were maybe like 5 to 7 minutes apart, like the whole time, I believe. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the whole time they're like 5 to 7 minutes apart, even leading up until I gave birth to him. So that was very different for me to deal with, because I was so used to having my contractions be like every 2 to 3 minutes and then, you know, pushing the baby out finally. It's really nice because those long breaks that I got was giving me a chance to kind of relax and almost take like a little nap. I was sitting in the bathtub, having all my contractions in the bathtub, and then, you know, I keep having to get out several times so they can check me. And I eventually start kind of progressing a little bit. Everyone was just like pumping me up, like, you got this, you got this. And I'm over here like telling myself like positive affirmations. Like I'm literally like doing my breathing techniques and like screaming like positive affirmations, like I can do this, I can do this, I got this, I'm strong, I can do anything. Like I'm saying that stuff to myself over and over and over and over, and I'm really believing it at this point. I'm like, I got this. Like this hurts like hell, and it's the worst pain hands down I have ever gone through in my whole life, but I'm still focusing on my main goal, which is to get him out safely. So everyone is just like amazed by how I'm like handling it, how I'm treating it. I'm not over here sitting here like screaming my head off. Like I'm moaning very, very loudly, but I'm not like screaming like you see in the movies. So I'm just, you know, trying to keep as calm as I can. And then probably about the last like hour or so, my contractions were almost unbearable. And I'm over here like asking for pain medication or for the gas or anything. I'm like, please, somebody give me something. My husband says like one of my nurses, he said that she could tell that I was like, I didn't need it and that I was asking for it, but she knew my husband knew that I didn't want it. And so my husband was sitting there like being so helpful, bless his heart. He was doing everything he could to help me. He was my whole backbone through the whole thing. So huge shout out to my husband, because I could not have done that without him. He was there for every single thing that I needed. So that was really great to have him there to experience that with me. I asked for the pain medication. I was like, somebody just please give me something. Like, I'm seriously in so much pain. And like my husband and the nurse, one of the nurses were like, are you sure? Like, do you really want that? And I was like, yes, like I cannot take it anymore. Like, I just want to sleep. I'm at this point, I'm exhausted. And I keep telling them over and over, like, I just want to go to sleep. I just want to rest. I just want sleep. And that's the only reason why I wanted that, because I knew that if I had the pain medication, it would take that edge off, and that's just what I needed. So she went to go get it. I can't remember what it's called. She first had to call my midwife to make sure it was okay with my midwife, because my midwife, she wasn't on the way yet, because I wasn't progressed far along at that point. And so she was like, okay, well, you know, if you want it, just know that, like, because my husband was like, well, what are the side effects of it? And she was like, well, it can cause the baby's heart rate to slow, and then it can cause breathing problems whenever he comes out. I was like over here with all the mom guilt. I'm like, oh my God, you know what? Whatever, just don't give it to me then. And my husband's like, baby, like, you got this, like, you can do this, like, you are gonna do it. And so I'm over here just trying to stay as positive as I can still, and it's just, man, it's tough. It's really rough at this point. And I was just like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this. Like, if I am not progressing, like, I just like almost like stop progressing. And I was like, you know what? If I'm not progressing anymore and my labor is gonna continue to last this long, like, I'm gonna have to end up getting the pain medication, because I'm gonna need strength and stamina to push this baby out, because if I'm too tired, like, I'm not gonna be able to push him out. I finally get back onto the bed for the last time, and then she checks me, and I think at this point I'm like a 7 or 8 or something like that, and I'm like, I'm so excited. And I honestly, I want to say, like, the time before that she checked me, I was like at a 6 or something, and so I was so grateful that I was like progressing. I finally felt the need to push, and so she checked me one last time, and she was like, okay, she didn't tell me exactly how, like, what I was dilated to. She said I had a lip on my cervix, and so she said that I guess she tried to do something to, I can't remember what exactly she did, but she did something to, like, the lip of my cervix, or no, I think she tried to, but it just like fixed itself on its own, I don't know. But she was like, once that lip goes away or whatever, then you're gonna be fully dilated. And I'm like, so I asked her, I was like, okay, well, what am I dilated to? She's like, you're like a 9, 9.5. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm about to push, because I feel the need to push. And she's like, all right. So I push, I'm pushing for maybe, maybe like 10 to 15 minutes, I think I'm pushing. So I'm doing like several pushes, and finally my midwife, like, once I'm like, while I'm pushing, like, my midwife finally walks in, and I'm like, thank God, because I think she was on call, but she wasn't there. She was on call or she wasn't, I don't know, but she had to drive all the way there. Like, she finally gets there. I'm like, thank God, because I didn't want anyone else to deliver me, because there was like another doctor that had come in, because she, like, it was looking like she wasn't gonna be able to make it. And I was just like, dang it, I don't know who this doctor is, but I don't even care at this point. I just want my son out. And so she finally comes in, and then, like, it's just her and then, like, the nurse, and then like a nurse or two, and then it's just me and my husband. And so that's exactly what I wanted. So I'm really glad that I got that. She's like, go ahead, do your thing. And so I'm like, all right. So I started to push in different positions. I was pushing on my hands and my knees. I was swaying my hips. I was doing everything I could to try and, like, help him come down more, just because he was still kind of high up for whatever reason. And so I was like leaning back, and my husband was like right behind me, and he was like holding me kind of, and I was just like leaning back like this. I eventually just kind of stayed leaning back like this, and I just kept pushing, and I finally was just like, okay, like, this has got to be it. She's like, because I remember she told me, she was like, okay, Isabel, like, this is like on your next push, like his head's gonna be out. And I'm like, okay. And so I push, and because I don't have any medication whatsoever, I literally feel everything, just so you guys know, like, you can feel everything. And so I'm pushing, and then I just finally feel his head come out, and then his head is kind of out for a minute, and it stings so bad at this point. It is stinging just oh, I just feel everything. He has got to come out in this next push because I cannot, like this stinging sensation, I cannot deal with it. And so I pushed as hard as I can. And I remember like literally like looking up to the ceiling and just like pushing with everything that I had in me. And then he just comes right out. I'm in shock. I'm just like, I can't, like, did that seriously just happen? Like oh my gosh, like I was really, really, really in shock. And I'm just sitting there, and she just kind of letting the baby lay right there and just kind of letting him do his own thing. And she's not like sectioning stuff out of him like right away immediately. He was perfect, like everything was perfect. And I remember looking down at him, and I remember thinking like, wow, he's so little. Like I really like thought that he was gonna be the littlest baby. But my husband's over here, he's like, wow, he's big. Like he thinks that he's big, but I'm thinking he's small. And I remember thinking something like, oh, I bet he's like 7-8 pounds or something like that, like in my head. So they're like, do you want to hold him? And I'm like, I just couldn't even answer. I was like, I guess, yeah, like let me hold him. And so she finally puts him on me. And cause I'm like kind of sitting like in the middle of the bed, and so I don't have anything behind me to like hold me up because my husband had moved. And so I kind of scoot back a little bit, and then he's just still kind of laying there and crying and still perfect, just kind of letting him, you know, catch his breath and get all the fluid and stuff out. And so my husband finally comes around, and he's like, you know, helping out as much as he can. And then so I birthed the placenta and all of that too. We did the delayed cord clamping and everything like that as well. So that was really nice because I really wanted that. And so I'm just kind of like laying there relaxing, just like, oh, like I did it. Like it was the best feeling ever. And I'm kind of getting emotional about it. I'm trying not to cry. But that, you guys, when I tell you, like, I was so freaking proud of myself. Like I was like, I cannot believe, I know I keep saying this, but I was just like, I can't believe I did this. Like I really just did that. Well, things still needed to be cleaned up and everything, but she just given us all a minute. Which is fine because that's what I wanted. Like I didn't want there to be like rushing around everywhere and people doing all these different things. Like I wanted everything to just be very organic and very natural. And so they finally weigh him after I hold him, and we're holding him, cuddling him, and then they finally weigh him, and he weighed 9 pounds and 1 ounce. Oh. He's getting hungry, so I'm gonna speed it up. So I was shocked. I was like, there's no way he weighs 9 pounds. She's like, yep, 9 pounds. He weighed 9 pounds 1 ounce, and he was 22 and a half inches long. Sorry, I can't remember that either. Yeah, that's basically all of it. Everything was great. He did have issues kind of regulating his blood sugar because I guess bigger babies and smaller babies, it's hard for them to regulate their blood sugars, and so he was kind of struggling a little bit with that, but obviously they turned out perfectly fine, and they regulated all by themselves. Yeah, he's looking for the booby. I've been breastfeeding. Like he eats so much, you guys, like seriously, he's a 9-pound baby, obviously he's gonna eat a lot. But breastfeeding has been going really well. He probably eats about every 2 to 4 hours, maybe, just depending on when he wakes up. Like I said, so empowering, and I highly encourage anyone out there who is thinking about having a natural birth with no medication, please look into it. Like I cannot even tell you how empowered you will feel. It is just the most amazing feeling ever. So now let's move on to the questions that people had. So the first one I got was, did you do anything special to prevent tearing? I'm glad I didn't mention this in my story. I did not tear, I didn't rip, didn't have to get a episiotomy. I think it just came naturally with my second daughter. I didn't have any tearing or anything. With my first daughter, I did have to get an episiotomy. I listened to my body and I pushed whenever I was supposed to. So I know that if you push too soon, I think that can cause tearing, and then it can cause issues with your cervix too. So definitely don't push before you're supposed to. Did pregnancy and birth get easier after the first, or did it get harder? I got that question twice. that's kind of a hard question to answer. I feel like it was, so my first one, like I said, I got induced with Naya. I was induced and my labor was like 12 hours or something. Like, it was crazy long. And it was just, it was not a fun birth. And then with my last two, they were both about 7 to 8 hours-ish. And when I was ready to push, I did a couple pushes and they were both out. Are you pooping? Are you awake? Hi, sweet boy. You awake? You want to say hi? Yeah. Okay, he's awake. Are you going to say hi? You see mommy? And he's pooping. Oh, that's so good. No. Oh. He's like, Mom, I'm ready to eat. I feel like as far as harder, because I did this one naturally, I don't know. That's seriously such a hard question to answer. Specifically for me, it's really hard for me to answer that question. You see yourself. He's such a good mixture between my husband and I both. Like, I see a little bit more of my husband in him than I do myself. He's like, Mom, come on with the milk. I know, I'm almost done, I promise. Anyway, I don't know. I can't really answer that one. I feel like it was a little bit easier just because I was managing it a lot better. So my third birth compared to my second and first one with him, it was just, I just knew how to manage it. I really took it very, very seriously, and I took the time to learn everything I needed to learn to have a good, you know, short, easy birth. Does pushing hurt without an epidural? Yes, it hurts. I've never had an epidural, so I don't know what that feels like. From what I've heard, you can't feel anything. But again, it's just all in how you manage it. If you know how to manage it really well, then the pain, I guess, maybe isn't as intense. I don't know how to explain it. It's weird. But yes, for me personally, it hurt. His little sleep sack thing is, it's like he's got a little tail. Okay, so next question is, did Davon cut the cord? Yes, he did get to cut the cord. Like I said, we did delayed cord clamping. So he did get to cut the cord. And my last question was, did you do a water birth, and is it true that it doesn't hurt? I was not able to actually push him, like birth him in the water, just because that was my birthing center's policy, was you can't actually like birth, like push the baby out in the bathtub, but you can labor in the bathtub. I feel like the pain definitely lessened in the bathtub, but then like that last hour, it was still really the same. Like the contractions were so intense, like I really couldn't tell that big of a difference from whenever I was in the bathtub and then compared to whenever I was sitting on the bed. I definitely recommend doing like laboring in the bathtub and the warm water and stuff, and then like rocking your hips back and forth and just like trying new positions, because I definitely think that that lessened the pain. I did go through, I think, like a little snippet of like baby blues. Like I was just very emotional. Probably like the first couple days we got home, I was just like, I love my family and my babies, and I was just very emotional. And it was just kind of like, it was just kind of like a sad feeling, because like I didn't have him inside of me anymore. And so that was a little bit rough for me to deal with. Like I just felt kind of like empty. That feeling just, it went away. But other than that, that's our birth story. Okay, I have to go because I have to feed him, or else he's going to get very, very, very grumpy. But thank you for being patient, Bubby. Thank you. My girls are obsessed with him. They love their little brother. My husband and I obviously are obsessed. Everybody's just obsessed with him. Like he's just the most adorable little thing. He has all this full head of hair. He's very healthy. He's just absolutely perfect. I'm doing wonderful. So, yeah, that's about it, huh? Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you guys liked it. Don't forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. That's about all I have. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in my next video.